It is 6:01, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. Scott, will you please lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes.
Heather, do you have Rebecca online?
She hasn't logged on yet.
Okay.
She-
was planning who's going to try.
Yeah, I just spoke with her a little bit ago, so we're waiting for her. She'll log on. Welcome, everyone. Let's see, the first thing up tonight is our approval of our minutes. Was everybody able to look those over? Do we have any questions?
I have, two things. One of them is on the vote about the levy. It says not present at the vote. It lists Heather, Lloyd, and Jack as not being present, but then it lists an I vote for them. So, I think they were present, because that doesn't make sense, you know what I mean? So with that correction, I think you just need to say, take out that line that says not present. And then, I don't know if we gave him a new title, but I think at the beginning, it says Scott is co-chair. So congratulations if that's your new title.
Co-work for me.
And
Carrie, did you get those corrections?
yeah, not substantial things, but
Yeah. Good catch. We all missed that.
that's all I had.
Okay. Did anybody else have anything they thought? So how do we approve these with the corrections? With the corrections. Okay. Anybody willing to make a motion? So moved. Second?
I'll second.
Jen made the motion and Sue seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Eric, is Rebecca on yet?
I vote aye. I am on. This is Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. Rebecca votes aye as well. Thank you. Motion passes. Board chair update. Let's see. As a reminder, we have our back to school bash this Saturday. It is at the United Way. It is running from 10 to 5. We currently have over $900 worth of school supplies donated to pass out for Saturday. So if anybody, I know Jen, I have you on the schedule, and Krista and I will be there all day. If anybody else has time and wants to swing by, we'd love to have you guys there. Right now, I don't think we're worried about a quorum, so anytime between 10 and 5, whoever wants to come and help pass out school supplies would be great. What else do I have? Lloyd and I will be speaking at the Pachyderms meeting on Friday. We're going to discuss the upcoming levy and ask for their support. We also have a few other groups that I've reached out to that I'm trying to get on their agenda for next month. Also, if you guys have any groups or any connections that we can reach out to and ask if maybe we can speak at their monthly meetings, September would be great. If we could just inform them on the levy that we're running and just really ask for support. My last thing is, Matt, I wanted to thank you for sharing your letter with Randy and myself, recognizing Greg. That was a great letter, and with your permission, I'd love to share it with the board.
Sure.
Matt sent a great letter to us, just recognizing all of Greg's hard work and just the time he puts in going above and beyond the call, and all of the effort that he put in towards our new maintenance and facilities building. I spoke with Greg this last week, and currently we're short 7 janitors and, as of today, 4 maintenance people. So he and I are working, trying to put some things together to just network with some different groups to try to pick up some of the weight. We've got a lot of stuff coming up, trying to get our buildings ready for all of our kids coming back to school. So he's got a few things in the works that I'm pretty excited about. That's all I have for right now. Next is public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on. Personnel action items. Liz, would you like to talk about that?
So, we've had lots of hires and resignations in the last, a great update since,
Do you have a microphone? You have to talk into the microphone, so
yeah.
people online can hear.
Perfect.
Oh,
Sorry,
Jack,
Liz.
Jack won't be here tonight, so just take that.
Great. All right, I'll start over. So lots of hires and resignations in the last 2 weeks, as you can see. Some great updates though, is since you had spoken with Greg, we actually have 4 custodial openings and, 2 maintenance, so we're on an uptick. But it is just ever changing, so hopefully at the bottom of this personnel activity report, starting in September, at the very bottom, we'll start including total number of positions and unfilled at the time, so you have a good, understanding of what we're searching for. Lloyd had brought up that, 7 custodians doesn't mean a lot if there's 100 of them, but if there's 10, that means a lot more, so, we'll have that included at the bottom. I'm gonna give Eden a pause because this is her crunch time, so we decided September would be good. But this is just our regular monthly.
Is anybody willing to make a motion to approve? No hire list?
I move that we approve the personnel action items as presented.
Thank you, Sue. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lloyd. It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion, any questions? Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Up next is Adult Education Coordinator, Pete.
Yeah, I believe in June that you guys approved, adult education coordinator instructor, and that person is going to partner with, Flathead Valley Community College, and as part of that contract, we added an additional, 30 days. The reason that we added the additional 30 days is that the adult education, program, so the HISET program at the college runs 12 months, but we tried to keep our adult education coordinator, I think we're at 218 days. And then one thing, looking back, we really need to, develop the program and articulate some curriculum. So we built in an extra 11 days. Normally, you wouldn't see those days. Those are at the discretion of the administration as far as adding days. Just wanted to put them on there just because this is a new position. It'll be for the 23-24 school year only. So that person will actually have a 230-day contract going into next year. That'd be pretty much equivalent to our assistant principals and our ADs, and it'll follow that calendar. So I wanted you to just be aware of that and let you know that, hey, we're not just trying to slide something in. It's they're going to work on curriculum and program development. Any questions?
Who are they working on it with? Like, with the.
So we've got to articulate it with, with Jody, so work with the HISET. We have the HISET options at the LEC, and then we'll work with the HISET, which is a little bit different, at the college. They just got a new, coordinator up there and a new instructor. And so eventually, they'll come on at the beginning of the year, but eventually they'll be housed at Flathead Valley Community College. So they'll be working with them, and it's going to be a little bit different on what we're doing, because if you remember, we also added the career pathway to that to be able to do something a little bit different with adult education. And our focus is going to be on dropouts in school district number 5.
They'll all work together.
Anybody else have a question? Nope. Thank you, Pete. Up next is a superintendent search. Liz?
So here's just a draft timeline. It's very generalized, so you can just see month for month. And then, when you hopefully hire a firm next week, that firm will take this general timeline and they'll put in some solid dates for you. But this is an outline of what has been discussed. It's gone through the personnel committee. And, I'll just give you some highlights. So August, we're gonna be reviewing this, and then, as you can see, I can't scroll there, but, the hire firm and I have linked in the 3 different contracts that we've received. So this is today an information item, so you can review all of those. And then next week, an action item will be to select a hired firm to help us through the process. Right now, we have MTSBA, Kaliva, and, an out-of-state McPherson and Jacobson. And that is a genuine recruitment firm where these others help through the process. You'll see a lot of differences in there, so I'm prepared to answer a lot of questions on that next week, unless you have any today.
Where's that third?
I believe, I have a cheat sheet I was gonna share next week. Omaha.
Okay.
And that is also just a little background, that is who Missoula used for their 22-23. You can check those out and have a whole week to come up with some questions we can go over next week. September is sort of designated to that hired firm presenting to all of you that timeline and their process and what they're going to offer and bring to the table, and get some suggestions from all of you. And then that's where our committees will come up with a more specific job description and a state-based salary that's comparable and competitive. October then is where we focus on all of the stakeholders and getting some input from them, so we can help the hired firm come up with a brochure that represents us the way we want to be represented out in the public, as well as they'll start combining all of that information into a matrix, which you'll use to select final candidate. November then, our position would post at the very beginning. And then those surveys the community is all going to do are due. Those will all, December will be designed for them to come and present all of that information to you in a very formal manner. And then that hired firm will create the screening tool that you all can review before the position closes. January then, the beginning, a hired firm would present you with an orientation on best practices for the process that they and you have come together and decided upon. The position closes, and then they would screen all of the applications for you based on the matrix that's created. Then February, we do the community events and the meet and greets with staff. Interviews are conducted, and then this would give us mid-February to finalize a candidate, the end of February for the hired firm and the board to negotiate a contract. And then on February 27th, you would hopefully be able to ratify a contract and vote that, and we would have a new superintendent at the end of February.
Does anybody have any questions for Liz on the timeline?
My only comment is, every year I am out of the country for the month of February. So I have Wi-Fi, I can participate, remote, but I will not be at any of those in February, just so you know. No.
Sure, you kinda hesitated.
No.
Anybody else have a comment or question on the timeline proposed? Was anybody able to look through the links, of the different hiring firms that we're considering?
Yes.
So,
Sorry.
so next week, when we get together on Tuesday, we'll discuss that further. So if you have an opportunity between now and then, click on the links to look through their letter of what they're offering, and the contract. Okay, thank you, Liz. Okay, next, contract, transportation, bus contracts. Denise, is this you? Thank you.
I wrote all
No,
this
it's not me.
We run our own program, you know, we have our own buses and drivers, but there are, some routes that we contract out to others. Those for, firms or businesses. We're entering into the 4th year of a 5-year contract, and, last time they negotiated rates, there was an agreement that the contracts would be open for the 4th, 5th years to negotiate. And so you can see the history of the rates there. The contractors were concerned about rising fuel prices. As in the past, there was a fuel escalator clause, that was removed the last time they negotiated. Kind of hinted or talked about, maybe bringing that back in, but Annie, our transportation director, had done research on fuel prices, and, she wasn't interested in doing that straight away from it. The contractors proposed a 12% increase in each of the next 2 years, and that's the maximum that, we're allowed to give them by law, without having to go out for bids. But we discussed it, we did our own analysis of what our routes cost us, and, so what we ended up offering and settling on with them were the proposed rates that you see. And the first rate is an 8% increase over this past year, and then second rate is a 4% of that, the 2024 rate. So they basically got 12% over the 2-year period, not 12%. So, there was a lot of back and forth, you know, and forward to approve these contracts.
Any questions? Any,
So they've already agreed to these rate increases and
They're good with them, pending your approval.
anybody willing to make a motion to approve the bus contracts?
So moved.
Thank you, Lloyd. Do I have a second? Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Any public comment? None. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Up next is our elementary handbook. Matt?
Very similar to what we've seen in the past. We did have one clause that came from MTSBA/OPI that includes parental involvement. Fashion last year, and then Friday. Able to answer questions if you have.
Any questions? Rebecca, do you have any questions?
I had a comment that I was going to do in discussion, not questions.
Okay. Elementary only, is anybody willing to make a motion to approve the elementary handbook? So moved. Thank you, Jen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sue. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Rebecca?
Yeah, I just wanted to initiate the conversation or bring up the point that this is on all the handbooks, not just the elementary ones, are on some level our first start of communication. You know, they're where students and parents have access, and everything about tone, every outreach into the community we want really needs to be reflected in these handbooks. You know, everything we don't do that's in these handbooks, to me, makes us look like we're not being transparent. Every item that we don't do, that we do list in these handbooks. So I really, really think that, you know, before we okay them next year, we really need to think very, very hard about, are we communicating the tone, ideas, and wondrousness that is the Kalispell schools in these handbooks? Because to me, they are the first, and so to some extent, the most important part of communication. You know, if the students aren't happy, the parents aren't happy. If the parents aren't happy, they're talking to the other community members. So, and my second general handbook comment or thought that I would love to hear more board discussion on is the handbooks we haven't seen. I guess actually, no, never mind. That's about high school. I'll bring that up next time. That's it.
Thank you, Rebecca. Anybody else? Matt, I have a question about the handbooks. When do these go live, or when are they printed?
They'll go live as soon as they're approved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
I
Rebecca, how do you vote? Any opposed? Motion passes. Up next is a high school handbook.
No, I mean, one thing that we did, you know, that just feedback from last year from the board was, ask for a little bit more time to be able to review those. So, you know, we'd ask for any changes, from both elementary and the high school, for any changes or any major changes that were going to be taking place this year, and that they went to the policy committee, And I think that we did that, you know, basically in June, so that the policy committee had ample time to look at it. If there was changes, you know, that they could work over the summer. As you guys know, very busy time in June for the administrators, so it's something at the forefront. So that was one of the changes, you know, that we implemented. And then, you know, as we pass through policies, you know, some things will have to be, you know, updated too. We don't print handbooks anymore, so sometimes we have to go through and make updates if there's certain things in there in the law that need to be included. Most likely that takes place next year, but just a couple things for you to be aware of.
Thank you, Pete. Anybody have any questions? Anybody willing to make a motion to approve the handbooks? Thank you, Lance. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lloyd. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on one second, Rebecca. Lloyd?
I just would like to, you know, reviewing these specifically with, dress code and with, the part on weapons and behavior. I think that, these have been in, they're not new, this go around. But you walk down the halls of Glacier Flathead High School, and there's kids with mace hanging off of their little mace keychains, kids with pocket knives. I would like to see us either enforce the policies, enforce the things that are in the handbook, or get rid of them, but not just gloss over them and basically bastardize them by not enforcing them. You know what I'm saying? I would like to, I don't know how we go about it, talking to the building administrators, but my daughter wanted to, her boyfriend's mom gave her a little mace thing, and she thought she was gonna take it to school. I was like, no, it's a weapon, you can't have that at school. Well, everybody else has it, and so it's a struggle. But I know that she's had pocket knives at school and nobody cares, and so I would like to see us enforce the things that we actually have in the books.
Thank you, Lloyd. Rebecca?
I definitely want to say I agree with Lloyd that, you know, everything in the handbook needs to be enforced evenly across the board, so that we're not, you know, playing favorites in any way. I think that is part of what I was trying to get at before, that, this is our communication. We need to be very clear about it. But the point I wanted to make was, about the handbooks we're not seeing tonight. Last year at this time, I asked about the Linderman handbook, and I was told there was one, but we hadn't seen it yet, and we would fix that. This year I was told there's never been a Linderman handbook, but because they're under the onus of the other two high schools, that was okay. I don't think that's okay. I think Linderman has fundamentally different policies. Less than a third of what's in either Flathead or Glacier's High School is related to Linderman, and there's lots of special things that are related to Linderman. So I would love to see a Linderman handbook. And the other handbook I would love to see created in the next year is, we see coaches handbooks, we see school handbooks. I think there should also be a teacher handbook. I think there's a contract between student and teacher, and I think the students have a right to know what's expected of them and what they can expect of their teachers. So I think if we have coaches handbook, it would also be appropriate to put in teacher handbooks.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Lloyd.
This is just for administration, but do you guys know why we have like basically one handbook for elementary, one for middle school, but one for each high school instead of one for both high schools?
Just on the high school side, both of them, they follow some of the same policies, but they have, different procedures for things that they do, so we give them that autonomy to be able to do that within their own building. It kind of goes back at least for me, the same way with the curriculum. Hey, Flathead has IB, Glacier has AP, so there's some things that are just different and basically unique, and we give them the autonomy to be able to do that as long as it's fitting in, with the policies that are prescribed by the board.
Great answer.
I just want to thank you again for bringing those things forward and making the changes that need to be made. Excellent job. Pass that on to everybody.
Right. Can I just address Rebecca's just real quick? So Rebecca, last year we did talk about the Linderman handbook. Why isn't there? And it's like, so we checked. There's a parent information sheet that Jody passes out, to all of the parents. You have individual parent meetings with every single parent, and for every single student, basically at the beginning of the year, gives them all that information. But you also have to realize that Linderman Education Center is not a high school. It's an extension of the classrooms for both Flathead and Glacier High School, much the same as the Ag Center. And we don't have a handbook for the Ag Center, so it falls under, their respective high schools. And so I guess we kind of look at it, that way. But if it's a will of the board and you want to have a handbook for Linderman, I can certainly start exploring that.
Thank you, Pete.
To me, it was more
Anybody-
about board information. I would love to see I think at least showing us the letter that is handed out to the parents would be awesome. So that, I know less about Linderman than I'd like to know, certainly. So that would be fabulous. I did also want to speak to Lloyd's point. We did have 5 separate elementary handbooks 2 years ago, I believe, and they've recently combined to one. And there was another point of Lloyd's that I wanted to give him some history on, but I don't remember. Oh, well.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Krista?
Do you know why Glacier doesn't have, like, parking passes like Flathead does?
The reason that Flathead has parking passes is because parking was always an issue. It was always limited. There was more students, more parking than there was spaces. Glacier never had that problem, so they never looked into parking passes.
Okay.
It was, at least when I was back in the day, so.
I was looking at the differences between the two of them, and that was one of them. But it talked about finding drug paraphernalia in vehicles, and I thought it would be easier to decipher whose vehicle it is if there was a parking pass, that it would identify the student easier that way. You know what I mean? And then it would also be able to identify if there's a vehicle there that doesn't belong there. Like somebody who shouldn't be at the school at that time. If each student had to have a parking pass to identify that they should be in school, or, if there was somebody that shouldn't be there, the SR would be able to identify it easier.
Yeah, and, just even with, parking passes, we require parking passes, in Flathead High School. Hey, I lost it, I don't have it, it's in, it's in my jockey box, so trying to, track that down just creates, you know, more time and effort for administration to be able to do that. So how we used to do it was just, we would get the license plate and then, you know, run the license plate, and then we could track the parent down, you know, it belonged to the student. And it was a lot quicker and a lot easier, for us. And then I'm sorry, what was your other point, Kristen? On the,
One of the policies in the Glacier Handbook talked about drug paraphernalia in vehicles, and I said it would have been easier to identify
Right.
whose vehicle it is if
And
the
we use-
parking pass had an
right,
identifier.
and we use the license plates usually,
Right.
if basically there's an issue.
Right.
As far as keeping, you know, students out or people out, you know, there's just a lot of traffic that happens at high schools, parents coming in to visit, you know, trying to find a place to park.
Right.
Just coming to Flathead High School last year, so it drives me nuts. I drive around the block 3 times before I can even find one spot, you know, or at Glacier, you tend to park, you know, there tends to be a lot more parking. So a lot of times we don't know, hey, is it visitors, is it, volunteers, is it presenters? You know, so that, there's just a lot of problems associated with those parking passes.
And so the administration makes these handbooks and we approve them, is that my understanding?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Does Flathead have a, handheld metal detector like Glacier does?
Do not know.
Okay.
Is it a metal detector?
Sorry, in the Glacier Handbook, it says that they have a handheld metal detector that they are at will to use when they deem it necessary. So I just wondered if Flathead would have the accessibility to have one also.
Find that out.
It was just a question.
Any further discussion? No? All in favor of approving the handbook, please say aye.
Aye.
Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Up next, we have community engagement, the community engagement proposal. Randy?
Yeah, this is something that you did last year, so it's just a discussion information item. And so what they did last year, this, if you read the sheet, it kind of explains it, is that, basically, board members would be liaisons with individual schools. And so then the individuals, the principals or other staff that send out emails to the entire parents and so forth would try to include the board members on that information. So it would be that we would try to always have a board representative at some of the big public events, like the open houses, concerts possibly, and so forth. And so, what they did last year is that the board chair and the superintendent kind of assigned them. I guess you could possibly request it if you want to. What we're trying to do is to make sure that, you have a school that your students don't go to. So, you know, obviously you would attend those as a parent. We want this part to be, you're representing the board out there. You're not necessarily wearing your parent hat, you're wearing your board hat when you go to be a liaison. And so then, kind of outlines the different things that you'd be responsible for. You know, just, remember, this isn't a situation where you're going there to evaluate the principal or evaluate the teachers. You're just going there to represent the board and show a board presence at the events that the schools are putting on. And so, what will happen is Heather and I will get together. You could send me an email or Heather an email if you have a particular interest in a specific school. Again, representing as a board member, not a parent. And, so then we'll create this. And of course, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create communication between, parents and, the public and engage them with a board member. Any questions there? It doesn't need approval, it's just information item.
How do you guys feel about changing it up a little bit of maybe whatever school you were at last year, we try something different, just a little bit? Is everybody okay with that?
With the exception of, like, I represent Lakeside Summers and Kyla, so I don't know if it would be great for, like, Scott to be in Lakeside Summers and Kyla when I'm already out.
So what Randy and I were thinking is keeping us as our representative
For
for
the
your
outlying.
district, your outlying district, but also being a representative at a high school.
Great.
Just to keep you involved, and again, just to have a contact, and some of the schools will have multiple trustees, but just changing it up a little bit so we get around to a few, just getting our faces out there and being present. And really just being on that principal's email list so you know what's coming up. When we have students in a school, we are already on that contact list, so we know what's going on in our present school, but some of the other schools, you might not realize what events they have coming up, so we're just trying to make connections. Are you guys okay with us just assigning randomly, or would you like a say?
I guess my thought was, I attend my daughter's school. So, when the teachers approach me that aren't my kids as well, so I'm not sure if there's really, but that said, I understand the desire to get us involved in more than one school. As attending all of the Hedges events and all the activities, and then having on another school, I just pause because my ability to be at every, a school is gonna be.
I think that's a valid concern, and I think your kids attend.
I mean, that'd be my preference, and viewed that way, okay? But I wouldn't. Now with KMS, at high school, we go to a lot of being fully immersed into a, for that purpose. That, I'm speaking probably more from a personal.
And that's okay. Anybody else? That was just
Well,
information.
I
If
will,
we're,
Oh, hold on one second, Rebecca, hold on.
are you asking people where they would like to be right now, or are you saying?
I was just, our thought was we were just going to randomly assign, and that's why I'm throwing it out there, just in case anybody has a reservation to that. I'm
Gotcha.
noting the concern. You can always email us if you have a preference or you don't like the idea of randomly being selected and assigned to a school.
We would, we'd like to have the list ready by the 17th, so I can give it to the board, so I can give it to the K-12 principals, so they know who their liaison is. Start including them in on all the emails and so forth.
Rebecca?
yeah, I just want to say that I would definitely like to, email and say if anyone wants a particular school, for me, I choose a school I can walk to. It's easier for me to have a walking school. But I also want to do a shout out for Glacier High School that really does a fairly good job of emailing the whole board saying, please come to the National Honor Society and start, or they do a really good job at always telling us, hey, this is happening at Glacier High School. We'd love to have board members there. So some of this is it'd be great if more of the schools told the board, hey, this is our blah, 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 please come. Because it's always exciting to go and fun to go as a board member. That's it for me.
Thank you, Rebecca. Anybody else? Okay, moving on. Policy updates. Randy?
All right. So, it's gonna take a while, but we're not gonna drag you through the long version of every policy unless you have a specific question about it. It's something that you read that you want to look at. Basically, what we've done is the policy committee, we've done that. So these versions of the policies contain all the strikeouts, the additions, and so forth, recommended by MTSB after the legislative session. There are 34 new policies completely or policy changes or updates that resulted from the, MTS, resulted from the legislative session. So if we go to the first one, it actually contains all the short summaries of the policies. So MTSBA policy notes is the one that you want to click on. So these are all in first reading. Because there's so many of them, I wanted to, even though usually some of these can be taken care of first reading, wanted to take them at least through second reading so that you can see the clean versions and so forth. And then maybe you have a chance to study them a little bit more if you have questions before they're approved in second reading. So you see the first one listed is the new MTSBA required policy. Everybody there? Okay, so this is the modest policy of public charter schools. This policy was created to assist districts in complying with HB 549. The policy details how to apply for authorization to establish a public charter school and respond to public requests for new schools or programs as detailed in the law. So if you go through the policy, if you actually look at the policy, you see everything is underlined because it's entirely new. And so what they're doing here is they're trying to establish policies and procedures of how the public can implement charter schools, or the board could implement public charter schools. If you've been keeping up, you'll notice that MQEC filed a lawsuit related to this argument that you can't use public money for charter schools. And so as far as today, they haven't issued a TRO. So right now, this policy law is in effect, so we should go ahead and adopt it and then wait for it to play out in court and see whether they're going to allow us to establish charter schools to be established. Questions there?
Randy, I just have a question about what you just said about the lawsuit, but the lawsuit is for the private charter schools. So that wouldn't affect this policy, correct?
I thought it actually covered both of them, this policy.
The policy covers both of them?
I thought
Because
so.
it just refers to
Just
public
refers to
charter
public.
schools.
That's in the synopsis. You go into the actual policy, is it different?
Oh,
Yes.
Does say public throughout? Yeah, then it would probably,
just double check.
I could call for MTSBA for clarification when we,
Yeah,
For the
well, this
next
is
meeting.
first reading anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, for next.
I just
second
assumed
reading.
it covered both of them since there were two separate laws, but actually, it only does refer to one law.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
Right? So I'll get some more clarification on that one, but anyway, we're moving forward with it. Okay, now the next, go down to the next six, I think, are all efficiency, flexibility and efficiency policies. We do not have that series adopted in the district. So we can skip down to MTSBA policy 110, which is taking office. Okay, so you'll see that it says this policy was updated to reflect changes in law from HB 811. This policy provides for the district to participate in an online repository for information on boards of trustees. And so basically what happens is that the district clerk then sends the information to the Office of Public Instruction, and they create this basically information that's available to the public as to who the trustees are in each district. Just creating that information available, making the information more available to the public. Questions there? Okay, MTSA policy 1400 board meetings. This policy is updated to reflect changes in the law from HB 724. Policy provides for online notice of regular board meetings, special board meetings, committee meetings, and possible closed sessions. So again, it clarifies that policy, and one of the things that it specifically says in here, the public notice now includes that the notice has to be posted at all of the buildings in the school district. And it specifically says, on the doors of the areas. So once policy is adopted, obviously that's something that we'll have to do. And it clarifies again that, you know, pretty much that all meetings, whether it's a policy committee meeting or a general session of the board, that it has to be notified so the public has the ability to be informed about it and participate if they wish to. Questions there? Okay, so this is MTSB policy 1700. This is a uniform complaint procedure that we're all probably pretty familiar with. This policy was updated to reflect changes in law from HB 504. Policy requires posting of the complaint process updates, legal citation, and clarifies procedures. So what it's doing is basically making it more available to parents and directs them as to where they could go and find this policy if they have a complaint. Okay, questions there? Okay, MTSB, yep.
Sorry to do this to you. On the public notice one, and I'm sorry to, it says that the committee meetings need to be noticed to the public consistent with the requirements of the policy. Are we gonna say?
I would assume that that's what they're saying, is that they want all policies to be posted to where people can see them.
Andy, can they be posted in the paper?
Yes, if the
Instead of on-
paper doesn't charge you. But if you want to pay for them to be posted in the paper, if it's free, they said that you could use that as a notification.
Yeah,
Instead of posting it on the doors every day.
no, it's not an or, it's an and. No and, there's no and in it as written, so it might be worthwhile checking with MT and or an or in here. I'm guessing it's an and, that they're all three newspaper if it's free, and then on the primary website or social media and social media, and then posting on doors.
Can we post the entire month agenda on the board or at the door?
I mean, in addition to the above noted electronic postings, the district shall post a physical meeting agenda at the entrance in the district and the following location in the community, and fill in the community. So we'd have to post our board agenda, all committee meeting agendas, everything.
I think this was, they're trying to do is to create, you know, more avenues for the public to know about meetings. So, I can get some more clarification on it, but
As I read it, it requires it. But I would
that's the
make
way I
sure we
read it
should
also.
confirm that before we, I mean, how many schools do we have in our district? I was just. It doesn't. Sorry to go back on your Andy, but.
okay, that's good. Okay, so the next one is MTSB Policy 2050, which is innovative student instruction. The policy was updated to reflect changes in law in SB 8 and HB 214. The policy provides for new definitions of remote instruction and online instruction, clarifies personalized learning options, and updates A and B calculations. So, again, this is a cleanup bill as far as making sure that the wording is easier to understand for the public, I believe is the main reason. And obviously talks about personalized learning options, which is very important to this district. And so, questions on that one? Okay, so the next one is Model Policy 2132, Student family privacy rights. This policy was updated to reflect changes in laws from HB 676. The policy provides for notice of rights provided in state and federal law as previously defined in policy. And again, it's basically more notice for parents about the rights that they have and what avenues they have to pursue those rights. Questions? Next one is MTSA Policy 2140, Guidance of Counseling. This policy was updated to reflect changes in law from HB 455. Policy provides for use of career coaches to assist students in particular areas of academic interest and career fields. And I saw a thing from OPI where certain areas are creating career coaches, obviously to cover some different schooling areas where the smaller class C and B schools. Obviously, AA schools, larger school districts can create their own system for career coaches. Okay, next one is Model Policy 2158. This policy was updated to reflect change in SB 518. The policy provides for public notification of the district plan to engage families and involve them in the student's education while providing information about educational opportunities within the district. Again, public notice, trying to engage the parents more, and obviously also the public as to how the school district is planning and what it does to encourage family engagement. Questions there? The MTSBA Model Policy 2167 is correspondence courses. This policy was updated to reflect changes in law in SB 8 and HB 214. The policy provides for expanded application for the use of correspondence courses. And it defines what the courses, how they can be used, and gives the district some options as far as what they can be used for, and obviously related to the Montana Digital Academy. The next one talks specifically about distance learning. That's 2168. Policy was updated to reflect changes in SB 8 and 214. Again, this policy provides expanded applications and definitions for use of remote instruction offered by sources other than the school district. So again, sometimes school districts need to use remote instruction. Obviously, we saw a lot of this when we had the COVID emergencies going on, but this also provides for school districts to be able to use those. Okay, so the next two are, one is the policy and one is the procedures. It's the Digital Academy, 2170 and 2170P. And so again, cites the same two, SB 8 and HB 214, as well as HB 749. This policy provides for an expanded use of the Montana Digital Academy for personalized learning and authorization for use of the newly established MTDA clearinghouse. There. Okay. He's running low.
I'll take it. Sorry, I grabbed yours instead of mine. Take care of it.
Okay, so this policy was updated to reflect changes in law from HB 744 and HB 745, as well as United States Supreme Court decision in Kennedy versus Remington. The policy provides specificity as when it is applicable for district staff and updates legal references. The Supreme Court case that they're talking about, you may have heard about it, is the one where the coach led the team in prayers before the ball, led members of the team that wanted to, and a prayer before the game, and a prayer after the game. And so the district told him that he could no longer do that. He continued to do it, and so then they suspended him and fired him. So, basically now it defines when religious activities are allowed and when they're not. For example, if a staff member, in that specific example, wants to lead a prayer while he's not employed in his official duties at the school district, and he has students that want to join him in those, that's allowed now. Questions there? Okay, so the next one is okay, thank you. 2450 is Indian Education for All. This policy was changed by HB 338, and basically what they want is they wanted the Office of Public Instruction, to have more information about what the Indian Education for All dollars were being used for. And they gave some specific examples that they felt really that's not what it's intended for during the hearings on this particular bill. And so now it gives more clarification to the school districts what their Indian Education for All dollars could be used for. Questions? Okay, we're up to 2600, MTSBA policy 2600, work-based learning. This policy was updated to reflect changes from SB 444. It provides for collaboration with families in certain areas when developing the students' work-based learning program. So again, a lot of school districts are already doing this, but now it clarifies it in code as to what the school district should be doing when they're offering a work-based learning program. A MTSBA policy, we're going to have two that are like this. This is the first one. This is 3100. This is early enrollment for exceptional circumstances. Policy was updated to reflect the changes in HB 352. It provides a termination date and revisions to address required transition from early enrollment to exceptional circumstances, or exceptional circumstances, to targeted intervention for reading proficiency. And so this policy goes away in on July 1, 2024, and it's replaced by the new law and the new policy that has that effective date. So it's just basically a gap policy. Okay, the next one is MTSBA policy 3110. It's entrance, placement, and transfer. This policy was updated to reflect laws changes in 326. The policy provides for admission and assignment of students on a part-time basis. It used to be optional for school districts to accept students on a part-time basis and get part-time A and B. This codifies it into law that if the school district does have the availability for homeschool or private school students, then they could come over and take courses at the school. Mostly applies probably to high school, but you know, there are cases where they might come to middle school or elementary for part of the day.
I know that they have to take A and B. A lot of it, is there a minimum amount of time that they have to be here, or they be for?
You know, what it is, basically, it's, you have to go in and figure the A and B calculations. You know, that would be determined by what the school accepts for the students. It used to be that they divided the A and B specifically to like 0.2, 0.4, 0.6.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think that they've changed it to where they have to attend more to actually get to that point of A and B.
And that's kind of the impression that I had, is that there's a certain amount that wouldn't count.
Correct.
To reach it. talk about that in the policy?
What it does is it says that you just have to use the A and B calculation for whatever student attends. So if the student has less than the minimum amount of instruction that they were required for A and B,
We would,
probably wouldn't get any because they don't meet the minimum. So usually within a regular school district, it's like a 0.4, I think, probably is what they need. Area. Okay. Questions there? Next one is compulsory attendance, 3120. The policy was updated to reflect changes in law from SB 518. This policy provides for excused absences for reasons related to parental rights. It also redefines the definition of when a student, how long a student has to attend school before they don't have to attend under this law. And in general, it's when they graduate from, when they finish the 8th grade or when they reach age 6. Next one is Model Policy 3121 and 3121P, enrollments and attendance, updated again from the same two policies that we've seen, same two laws we've seen several times before, which is SB 8214. This one provides new definitions of remote instruction and online instruction and updates A and B calculations. So they did update the A and B calculations, but off the top of my head, I don't know exactly what typically did to them. But again, it's their calculating system that they use to count students. Next one is Model Policy 3141, non-resident enrollment. This policy was upgraded to reflect the changes in law on HB 203. The policy provides for termination dates and methodology to establish educationally relevant students for the enrollment of non-resident students prior to July 1, 2024. And so again, this is the one which is the stopgap, because statewide, charging tuition for students goes away for every school in the state on July 1, 2024. So it's up to the school district now, the trustees at the school district, to determine what they're going to do. And so previously we charged tuition. For this next year, we determined previously that we're not going to charge tuition for any out-of-district students. Okay, this next one is part-time admission. This policy was updated to reflect changes in HB 2396. Policy clarifies the admission of resident students on a part-time basis. So again, this is another policy directed towards what are we going to do with part-time students, when they can be admitted, and residents of the school district. Okay, the next one is bullying, harassment, and intimidation. This policy was updated to reflect laws and the changes in HB 361. Policy now has updated legal references. So that one, all they do is just update the legal references there. The next one is student use of buildings. The policy was updated to reflect changes in law from SB 518. The policy provides for public notification of the rights of parents to withdraw a student from a club or a group. It's the one that's probably going to have the most immediate impact on schooling this year. And what it does is, you know, if you've had a student in an athletic activity, you sign a permission slip for that student to participate in that athletic activity. Now it requires that for every student-sponsored club and activity in the school district, the parents have to be notified what that activity and club does, and then also that they give permission for their student to belong to that activity and club. There's some gray area about whether, let's say that the students decide that they're going to start what's that called, anime club in the middle of the school year. And so, but it's not sponsored by the school, they just need a place to meet. Whether you need to have that notification sent to the parents, even though it's not school sponsored. And so we get some more clarification on that. I thought I had clarification because we discussed it in the AA board meeting, the AA superintendent's meeting. We determined, they thought from, since that group was only school sponsored, but I've gotten some other information since then, so I'll double check to make sure. But anyway, this policy has to be in place because it's required under the new one. And of course, so now in all the high schools, they're gonna have to get, the principals are gonna have to get their, staff members that sponsor an activity to create a description of that. They will have to create permission slips to send out to the parents to describe what the club or activity does. And then they have to keep an enrollment. Because students that do not have parent permission, not attend that club or activity until they get their parent permission. Questions there?
I have one.
Yeah.
Or more comment. When, can you help me remember, but in the symposium, we discussed this quite a bit. And I believe that it wasn't that they had to have permission slip to attend, it was that they had to be, the parents just had to be notified so that they could opt them out. Is that correct? Do you remember that?
Yeah, but I thought that, I mean, again, we need some clarification because I thought they said that the permission slip then would,
Negate that?
would handle that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
oh, yeah, good point, though.
As we talked today in our policy meeting, this is gonna be an issue when, you know, you're having lunch with your friend and they say, this club, oh, what's that club? And, or you have a kid who won't return the permission or has said no, based on the clarification. I go play at the Dungeons and Dragons Club.
One other thing I was, curious about is this changes, so I was looking at Flathead's, their handbook, and they have like the Alpine Ski Club, Asian Cultural Club, Art Club, and they're all sponsored, and do I remember correctly, they don't have to have a sponsor anymore, they can be student-led? So is this something that we would want to have the change made to the handbooks for this year, or just let it ride and then change the handbooks after the fact, or change them next year?
I imagine we'll probably have to do some updates and bring them to the board when these policies go into effect, which would be after, you know, after second reading for the most.
So it'll just miss this year's.
Well, I guess it begs the question, do we have to put student-led groups in the school handbook? I mean, basically, this is a student-led group that is asking to use school facilities without a sponsor. School will still be required to get either permission or opt-out from the parents based on whatever feedback we get on that. And then there will have to be some sort of staff member dedicated to making sure that people who attend that student-led group are on the list or not on the list, right? But
Yeah.
because there's a student-led group, does that mean they're in the handbook? Because the handbook is the stuff that we control. Our level
Right.
of control over a student-led group is simply, we're providing you a facility, and we are making sure the requisite, permission slips have been signed or opted out, and that the attendance is properly taken. Right?
I would believe you summarized it pretty well.
Okay, so it just strikes me as they wouldn't be in the handbook. The process of how a student-led group would meet might be in the handbook.
Yeah.
Not every single student group, because halfway through the school year, somebody might create a Dungeons and Dragons student group. You know, we don't want to be modifying our handbook halfway through the year.
Correct, but what I was talking about is in general, if it's not in there now, that all student-led activities, parents have to have notification and give permission. Student that are school sponsored, that should be in there at the beginning.
For school sponsored, yes.
Okay, questions there?
I have a question. Kind of like a legal question. Could there be it seems like with athletics, you know, you fill out the one form, we've had the concussion check, my kid can do these things, and then they can do various. There'd be like a permission slip that says like, I give permission for my kid to participate.
Or does it have to be a way for parents to streamline the process, especially for kids that are in a lot of things? And then if parents wanted to not sign that, they would have to.
I think, it has to be very specific as to what the club is. So they probably might have 10 different permission slips if the kid's involved in that many activities that the parents is gonna have to sign. Because, it has to contain a description of what the activity or the club is. So for example, I don't know a specific, I can't think of a specific example at this time where something might have a name that doesn't match up to what the actual activity does. But it'll be a year, it'll be a trial and error as we try to get this implemented, because it's something entirely new to schools. Again, the best way to think of it, I think, is just similar to what they do for athletics, and having the parent permission slip, describing what the activity is and so forth. This is something the administration will have to get together and work through and put our model forward, and then make sure that we check with MTSB as we go through to make sure that we're meeting the requirements of the law.
Randy. Rebecca, do you have a question?
I do. As I read this policy, it says very specifically, this is not about clubs that are sponsored by the school. I mean, the meeting is must be met. The following guidelines must be met. The meeting is voluntary and student initiated. There is no sponsorship of the meeting by the school district, its agents or employees. So I don't think this is, I think this is talking exclusively about student-led clubs. And I don't know if we have any student-led clubs, but I know that when we rent out to another group that wants to meet on the campus, we charge for it. So this isn't a school district sponsorship? Do we, I guess I don't think we have a model for the type of clubs they're talking about. And I think it's going to require some real thought about, if a student group did say they wanted to use the buildings, is that under the same rules as any other group trying to use the building?
And again, I think, to remember that this is first reading, I'll try to get most of those answers to the questions before we bring it forward. I think probably what I'm going off of is what the AA superintendents told me when we had our weekly meeting, is they told me that they assumed it was for school-sponsored activities. So again, that assumption could be wrong, but definitely check into it and try to get more clarification. Unfortunately, the policy is kind of vague, and so it's open to a lot of interpretation. So I think we need to definitely get some more information on it. Any other questions? And again, we'll bring some more clarifications back. One may not be one that we could do next week. If we go through policies again next week, it's second reading, so get a lot more information about this. Maybe MTSBA has something that they've comprised they can send out, a better explanation about this. Okay, so next one is MTSBA policy 3235, video surveillance. This policy is updated to reflect changes in law in SB 392. The policy provides a protocol for an event or district utilizes facial recognition technology. We do not utilize facial recognition technology, but basically what we do is, especially on the buses, we have video and audio, and that has to be noticed to the public. Because in Montana, it's illegal to record somebody's voice if they're not aware that it's being done. So video, you're fine, but if you have audio, then you have to post notices. And that's what our current policy says also. Okay, next one is MTSB policy student discipline. This is a policy that got some press earlier, it's HB 363 and HB 450. The policy establishes outlines of self-defense provisions and updates legal references. What this policy does is it allows a student to use self-defense as a reason why they were involved in a fight. So, then the principal, during his investigation, he has to take that, or the assistant principal, they have to take that into consideration as they investigate it. And if they find that the student it was a self-defense on the student's part, then the law is now codified that then there's no penalty if it's self. Questions there? Okay, MTSB policy 3413, student immunizations. This policy is updated to reflect changes in the law from HB 715. The policy provides public notice for immunization guidelines and exemptions. So again, just making it easier for the public to find out what those guidelines are and what those guidelines are, and where they can find the information if they have questions. Okay, MTSB policy 3510, school-sponsored activities. This policy is updated to reflect changes in law from SB 518. This policy provides for public notification of the rights of parents to withdraw a student from an activity. So again, just making sure the parents know that they have a right to allow a student to attend an activity, but they also have a right to withdraw the student from that activity. And this probably came about because there was some controversy earlier in the year, that actually is still somewhat controversy, is that they were allowing students into certain clubs or activities without parent permission in other states.
Randy, to Rebecca's question, this needs to be read in conjunction with, because 3233 is the one that says, these curricular groups or organizations,
Okay, so MTSB policy 3550. This policy is to reflect the changes from the new laws in SB 518 and 582. The policy provides for public notification of rights of parents to withdraw a student from club or policy. It also authorizes CTE clubs to seek a grant to support club operations as provided by law. And so it then goes and it lists all the CTA, like I'd say FFJ, but I don't know, that's not right. FCCLA, student skills, BPA, other organizations like that. So gives them the right to go ahead and seek a grant if they will support their organization. Okay, the next one is MTSB policy 4410. This policy was updated to reflect changes in the law of SB 213. Policy provides for methods in which a district can assist the county in establishing rules of operations of an interdisciplinary student information and school safety team. This is where the interdisciplinary team is where you get together with the juvenile probation officer, family services, and you can together plan actions and action plans, create plans to help the student go through school, be successful, and if they return to school, for example, if they've been in detention, they all work together to make sure, try to create student success. Several counties have these. When I was in Missoula County, ours was pretty active. And so that's something that we can go ahead and approach those agencies to see if they're interested in forming one in Flathead County. What I've been told by others is it's not very active right now, or inactive. Okay, district safety is from SB 213. It provides procedures related to establishing the district safety plan, coordinating with the community to implement the plan, and identifying threat assessment practices within the plan. So we just take our safety plan that we currently have and then review it and make sure that we invite parents, public to come in and make sure that they have input on it. Safety plan. Okay, the last one is to delete the emergency policies that were created during COVID, and my understanding is that's already been done, so we don't have action on that. Any other questions?
Andy, these are all just first reading, we're not approving
Right.
anything.
Obviously, there were a lot of questions on some of them, so they're all just first reading.
Okay.
Bring them back from second reading. We may probably split them up so that we can do some of them maybe at the August 15th meeting, and then get more further information, clarification, make sure that we have that for the next meeting. Some of the questions you had on these specific ones can be answered.
Anybody else have any questions? Policies.
More than I've ever run through in one time.
Lot.
I've been doing this for a while.
Okay, moving on. We've got one more policy update with staff change.
Yeah,
Action item.
this one, the explanation here is pretty easy. Because Liz has been hired as the KPS HR director, policy 5120 needs to be updated to remove the former superintendent, Micah Hill's name, and replace it with Liz English's name, and attached for review are both the old form and the updated one on determination of eligibility for hire, as well as policy 5120P. And additionally, policy 3225 needs to be updated by removing Sarah Cole's name and replacing it with Liz English's name as HR director. The policy that they're updating probably needs to go in second reading, but the other two with just the name changes, that's just informational. Name changes will take place.
Are we moving this to discussion only and come back?
That,
This is listed as
okay, so then these are all in first reading, we'll just bring them back. But we need to go ahead and make sure that they're updated. These are the ones we can do next week pretty easily, because they're just updates we talked about. Yeah, it's just a clerical update on the name changes, but the one policy does say that it's been changed. Is that a clerical update too, Liz?
The change in the names, all of them, right?
Yeah. This is just more notification. It does say action, but it's more notification to the board. But if you want to, it's fine to, you could approve these at first reading. And so it's just done. You actually could approve them right now.
I move that we approve them.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on this? All in,
Ready to say aye.
all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, they're approved. Randy, there you go.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay, MTSBA.
Okay, so this is just for your information. You saw all these policies that said you have to notify the parent about about this policy and that policy. So this is the, what MTSBA created to put in all of the handbooks. You see it in the red there. It's the parental and family engagement. So this will be in all of our handbooks, and so then it'll list the policies and how to get a hold of them. And also, if they can't get them online, then we'll provide a copy, hard copy for them to look at. So that's the uniform grievance policy, the students and family privacy rights, parent, family engagement, and involvement in education, the student health information, instruction, the school activities and clubs, student health, student immunization, and the student records and confidentiality. So then these will be placed in the handbooks so the parents have that information. Simply be under this category, which is parent and family engagement.
They made it in the handbooks for this school year. Anybody have any questions on this? I think this is a great idea. Just gives parents one more tool and guides them in a direction if they're confused. Anything else, Randy, on that?
No.
Okay.
Oh, I did have a
Okay.
question on it.
Sorry, Rebecca. Go ahead.
I didn't notice if it said specifically if Xeroxes for those without web access was going to be provided free of charge, or if we were charging for that.
I think that, it's to create more, notification for parents and availability, so I don't think we would charge that.
Thank you for the clarification. I just wasn't sure if these were, one-page things, or if it was gonna be 100-page things, which might become onerous.
I think probably if they want all of them, it'd probably be about 15 to 20 pages. So it's not gonna be a great burden. But I think if they come in, they want a specific information about one policy usually. We can also, tell them it's on the website, but if they say they don't have access to a computer and they can't get on the website, then we provide a copy for them.
Perfect, thank you.
Anybody else? Up next, levy discussion. Denise, want to start, or Randy?
I think I'll just start, basically, and Pete and Matt and Heather can all give their information as we go along. We will have the levy numbers for approval at the next board meeting on the 15th. Denise did not get the information for the county, so she could create those until yesterday. And so now Denise is creating that information. She's creating information about the budget approval and then finishing with the trustee report at the end of the year. Those two specifically have to be approved at this budget meeting. And then also we will have the levy approval on there since we have the numbers. We're still working through the numbers right now. We had a meeting today. We looked at some numbers, but we still haven't determined what it is. But everything will have to be approved by the board as to what's the numbers, what you want. And then we'll also be able to tell you how many meals it is. We're now creating information for the public. As soon as we get the information with the final numbers, then that'll start going out to the public immediately. And the information we'll provide them is why we're doing this, what's it going to cost, and what's the benefit of these levies to our student population. So we're going to get all that going. It'll be a pretty intense month as we go into August and September. The ballots have to be mailed out on the 18th and returned by October 3rd. So pretty much the information that I have right now. Anybody want to, Matt, anything to add?
Yeah, I'll add that, just at forefront of everybody's mind is the main vision here with these levies. Nobody likes asking for money. We know our history with levies and bonds and tough conversations, but our elementary tech levy sunsets this year, so that levy is more about renewing it. It's hard to imagine a modern school without technology. And so I think that there are some key attachment points, as Jack would refer to it as, for technology, very tangible, so applicable, people can visualize what that means for schools. And then the safety levies that we're partnering with, the vision behind that is just the timing. We went through that security audit and we had some findings associated with that. We also are well aware of the mental health crisis that our community has experienced in the last couple of years. We use grant dollars to secure a health wellness suicide prevention specialist. Those grant dollars are gone. We don't have funding from the state for SROs, school nurses, to compensate or to make whole our counseling staff. And any of those other things that we already have committed to, plus the things we want to do to make our campuses even safer. Also create some pretty solid attachment points for our community and something that's talked about across the country. we've been able to partner with Scott's help with KPD and had I think, a couple really good meetings. And what we'd like to do is advertise that we're working in conjunction and collaboration with KPD on anything that would add more security presence to our campuses. And then, just use their expertise, rely on them to fill the gaps that we know that they can do. Then the numbers will come in, and I think the advocacy that Pete and I have had is that, although we always want to present something to the community that we think will pass, I think the stronger commitment that we have is to make sure that we are presenting something to the community that encompasses the need that we have. It would be more advantageous, we believe, in the long run, to pass something that we know will address the needs that we have, instead of just trying to get something out there that will pass. I think that those relationships in the community go for a low number, and then you overcommit, and then the community is frustrated later on because you're only putting patchwork things together. So when we've been looking at this, we've been staying true to that. Both of those levies, working with as many people as we can to test ideas.
Did you have anything to add? Denise?
Well, and looking at those numbers
Heather?
today, when we're looking at them, and like Matt's saying, we want to put together a number that we can approach our community and ask for, but we also want to make sure that we're asking for a number that we can fulfill this promise of when the community is asking us, what are you using these funds for? We are using the funds for those in the end. We don't want to come short on a number just because it sounds like an easier number to possibly get passed, and then not to be able to fulfill this promise at the end because we're short and we didn't have enough money to fulfill all of it. So we're being really cautious with running numbers and looking at a realistic number of what this looks like for safety in the elementary, for safety in the high school, for tech in the elementary, technology in the high school, and really just coming up with a good number that we can present to our community as this ask and this need of what we're looking for and what we need right now. So Denise is going to work really hard on that. So next week, we have, I know it's a really quick turnaround for our next board meeting, but it is going to be a big board meeting. It's going to be a long board meeting. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, and big items that we're talking about. Just throwing that out there.
On the levy issues, and I'm not sure if now is the time or if we should wait for next week, but if you want to wait till next week, I'd like to plant the seed now. Consistent with what you were saying, Heather, at the beginning of the meeting about efforts and outreach and groups that we can meet with as individual board members to start talking about the levy and start promoting this. And I know you and Lloyd have a meeting set up, and I mean, I'm thinking all of us as board members should maybe be prepared to come forth with a list of maybe 5 different organizations that we should approach, or someone should go talk to, or you'd be happy to be involved in approaching. Something like that, where, say, maybe there's multiples of us that have the chamber on our list. I mean, then we all go to the chamber, right? Instead of just one person going, and try and identify those groups that we think we should approach and that'd be worthwhile approaching and who'd be willing to do it. I'm also mindful of, obviously, there's Rotaries, there's, people may want to speak to their churches, there's outlining groups, there's, I mean, you name it. I mean, I think information and education on this one, especially because we have really tangible things that we're providing with these letters. I think that getting the information out is in forums and venues that people are used to. I guess mailers and signs are not going to pass these letters, right? It's really trying to connect and communicate the message. So that's where, I mean, I don't know how much we want to dive into this now, or if this is part of the topic for next week's meeting, but I think at a minimum, we as board members should all be thinking of 5 places that we'd be happy to go speak about this at, and have overlap with others, or I hear one that Krista has that's wonderful, I'll be like, hey, can I tag along with you? Let's go do this together. I think it's just so important.
Any and all. I don't care what group we're talking about, all groups. And anybody who has connections. If you're not able to or aren't willing, I'll go to whatever groups you have. And whoever wants to tag along with me, that would be great, all of us. Anybody who's willing and able, we need to get the message out. And again, just like you said, it's not, flyers and mailers are not gonna do the job this time. We need to connect with people and we need to explain and really get across the need of where we're at. So if you have 5, that'd be great. If you have 10, I will take them. Anything you guys have, we'll bring it to the table. Anybody who wants to come to the communications committee meeting on Monday, we're gonna discuss it there as well, so.
What time's that meeting on Monday?
10.
Okay. And where's it at?
It's on the agenda for the board governance committee meeting on Friday also.
Is that 9?
Communications meeting at 9.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock Monday in the basement.
Yeah.
In the
Rebecca?
basement we're referring to?
Oh, at the central office.
Okay, great, just so I don't show up at a random date.
You're okay.
Your basement.
Rebecca, do you have a question?
More of a comment. One of the things we talked about to differentiate this October election from other ballot initiatives has been to make sure we always refer to it as, safety and technology levies. That to use the word levy brings up a perhaps inappropriate thought of that it's a general bond levy. So I want to make really sure that in all our communications, including this meeting, we really make sure that we're saying safety and technology levies, because they are somewhat different than the other kinds of things we've tried to pass in the past.
Good point, thank you. Anybody else? Moving on, how about the consent agenda district-wide? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jen. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Sue. It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion on this? Any public comment?
I have
None?
some discussion if nobody else does.
Okay, go ahead.
2 things on the Pizza Hut proposal. It seems like it's a proposal. Are we voting on accepting the proposal, or are we just voting on accepting the fact that they applied a proposal? I was unclear on that one, and one other.
With the Pizza Hut, we're accepting that one. It's the only one that they received. And actually, my belief is they didn't even receive one last year.
Right. That's why I was
No,
curious
because
whether.
they lost this last year. Not a favorite.
Becca,
And
did you have a second question?
Yeah, on the gold discount card from Flathead High School, it said that this discount had only been used by football players before, and now it would be open to other groups. So this is a different discount card than the one that say Debate sells outside of Albertsons every time I go to shop. So we have 2 different types of discount cards out of Flathead. Is that correct?
Rebecca, that's correct. So basically what Bryce is doing is he's using the FHS discount cards for all of the activities. So those used to be specific to, I think mainly, at least back in my day, when it was just basically football, they saw the Brave cards. And then the digital discount cards are what the girls flag football and then boys football are going to be selling, and that's something that's a little bit different than the digital ones, or the fundraising.
So we have this, what used to be called a Brave football card. And we also have another discount card that all the activities have always sold. And we're talking about generalizing this one. I'm just confused if there's 1 or 2 or many types of cards.
There's 2. One is going to be the FHS Gold discount card that all activities will be able to use as a fundraiser on top of their Toyota raffle tickets, and then the digital one, so that will be done digitally, and that is specific to girls flag football and boys football.
I guess my sticking point is that there was a discount card that, I've seen band sell, I've seen debate sell, I've bought too many over the years, and I'm just curious because he said that it had never before been sold except by football players, so I was just a little confused. But there used to be two, and now we're going to one, or there was always one, and just somehow some groups sold it besides football, and that was just incorrect in some way.
So on there's the FHS, gold discount card. So that's an actual card that all of the activities programs can sell and use as a fundraiser. And then the other fundraiser is the FHS digital discount card, and that is specific to football.
Last year,
Oh.
wasn't it just the gold discount card, and now
I
we'll
think it
have
was the
the,
Brave card last year. I could be misspeaking, but I thought they used the Brave card last year.
okay. And I think that's what they're calling the gold discount card this year.
I thought the football just did I can't recall, but I thought the football just did their individual cards, and now Bryce is opening it up to all activities.
Speech and debate sold. I know that speech and debate is celebrated.
I think all activities sold Brave cards, and I think that's what they're considering this gold discount card, and this year we'll also do the digital discount card. So I think, Rebecca, I think we have two this year.
Oh, I guess I don't, yeah, I'm not sure. I understand, but that's fine.
This one says the digital one is for football and flag football.
That's
The
correct.
physical card is for flathead activities. There's two cards. The
Yes.
physical one is all activities. The digital one is for football and flag football. That's what's
Right,
happening
my
this year.
confusion was not about the digital one. My confusion was the fundraising request form for the Flathead Activities Gold Discount Card said we have sold Brave football cards. Other years past, only football players sold the cards, and I had bought
I think I stand corrected on that.
to
So
what?
that was back in my day. That's who told them where the Brave football team sold the Brave cards.
No, what she's reading right here is we have sold Brave football cards. This now allows all Flathead activities to sell the discount cards where in years past, only football players sold the cards. I see
Right,
your
and that's my
there,
confusion
but I think
because
this-
other groups have sold a card, and I didn't know if it was the same, as I said, debate and band both sold a thing called a Flathead Brave card. So was there a separate Flathead Brave card that all activities used to have access to and one just for football? Or, yeah, that's where I'm confused. Is in the past, was there an exclusive card for footballs as well as an activity card that any activity could sell?
I believe, so that card, the Brave card, the gold digital card, was for the activities, so they could sell them. But like, Ursula said, it was other than just the football. So the digital cards are unique.
Rebecca, I can tell you as I'm reading the room, I don't think anyone knows for sure. That's the reading I'm getting on the room. Everybody's looking to see if somebody else knows for sure the answer to your specific question.
Okay, it was really just a point of curiosity, so.
Anybody else? Moved and seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Rebecca, how do you vote?
I,
Any opposed? None, it passes. Thank you. Okay, trustee reports. Rebecca, let's start with you.
oh good, I hadn't unmuted yet. My trustee report is unfortunately not too positive a one. I had discovered somewhat by accident by a student asking me if KMS was canceling homeroom next year, as had been announced in their classes. And I had responded, no, that's just rumor, we would never vote for that. And then I discovered later in the summer that in fact, when we had voted to change the FTE at KMS, where I thought it had been explained to the board that, this was to conserve jobs and that we were combining things. It hadn't, to me at least, been clearly spelled out that the ramifications of this were getting rid of homeroom at our middle school. And I'm concerned about this, both in the communication level of, I feel that when this presented, the implications of these financial cuts were not clearly explained to us. And I feel this is a real change in vision. When KMS started, we were very clear that the way to make such a very large middle school still be a good transition from elementary, we were going to put, protections in place. And those protections included homeroom and pods and teaming, and that there are changes being made to these without explicit board consent is a little troublesome to me. I would certainly not have voted for these financial cuts put in this manner had I known, and it's possible other board members would have as well. So I assume with school starting 1 week away, it's probably too late to think of changing it, but I'm really concerned about the direction KMS will be taking without homeroom, which I really see as critical to maintaining student comfort in a school that large. And I think that was very clear in the board directives when we started that school, that this was what would make such a large school possible. So I'm concerned.
Thank you, Rebecca. Jen, would you like to follow?
We've been pretty busy in the policy committee, and the other thought is looking forward to the event for back to school, and glad to hear there are school supplies that have been donated, because there's a lot of families out there that struggle to meet those. That'll be the extent of my update.
No report.
Krista?
I spent the other day going from store to store asking for donations for the back to school thing, and I was super successful. Walmart gave me a $300 shopping spree, and Target gave me a $250 shopping spree. And we got so many supplies, and it was so amazing. And I'm looking forward to the back to school event on Saturday. Other than that, that's all.
Thank you, Krista. Awesome. My only thing is to remind people that MTSBA Region 1 meeting is tomorrow afternoon at Glacier Gateway Elementary. And we have several things on the agenda that might be of interest. We are talking about the Early Targeted Intervention Program, the School Health Insurance Trust, Delegate Assembly, the review of the MCEL information, the COSBA update, and preferred method of communication. We want to reactivate the regions of MTSBA just to develop those relationships. And Region 1 is Big Fork, Kalispell, Whitefish, Columbia Falls, and all the rural schools. In Eureka's in there also. And all trustees are welcome. I will be there. I know Heather said you're going to try to be there. No business is conducted. It's informational. It is tomorrow, 4 o'clock at Glacier Gateway. And Barb Riley from Columbia Falls is the regional director. I am the vice chair of that. And then Emily Dean from MTSBA will also be there.
This is more of a concern than an update, but last year I brought up AI and the how easy it is for kids to cheat in school now. And, you know, and I brought it up before, and they said it was very new, and we didn't know anything yet, and I was curious if, maybe one of Eric or somebody could talk to us at some point in a future meeting about how things are going with being able to, dissuade that in the classroom. I know that, you can have it, there's things that will tell you if it was written by AI, but then you run that, say I wrote a 5-page paper, or it wrote a 5-page paper on golf, and the program would tell you that it was written by AI, but then you can run it through a rewording generator, and then it says 98% chance it was not written by AI. But anyway, I just want to make sure that our kids are getting a good quality education and not, resorting to these, things that will just, you know, they'll be able to gloss over and not get the value and the benefit of doing the research and writing these papers. I hope that's something that we could learn more about as a board.
Lloyd, I don't know if you noted it, but the high school handbooks did specifically put in AI as a form of cheating. The middle school declined to, but the feeling that it was under their policies already, but both high school handbooks did specifically make mention of AI.
And I saw that in there, but I know last year my kids specifically did a project or a paper where they sat down and wrote their paper and did all their work, and the teacher decided to just give everybody in the class the same grade because he said he couldn't tell if they wrote it with AI or not. So I think, and I don't like the fact that that is going to squash some of these kids' desire or drive to do a good job on a paper because they think their teacher's not gonna care because he can't figure it out and they're gonna get the same grade. So I understand that it's in the handbook as cheating, but how do we bring that to the forefront? It's a lot harder to discover that they've cheated nowadays.
Administrator reports. Denise, would you like to start? Do you have anything to report?
I'm just working, like Randy said earlier, on, closing out CFS. We're pretty much have that done, and then crunching all these numbers.
I wasn't just for report to be, just work.
Thank you, Denise. Pete, how about you?
I'm working too. Just a couple of things, just wanted to, update you on, summer school, just to have, all the numbers for that. So we had, 245 students complete 433 courses, and we had, 13 students graduate. Last year, we had 202 students, who earned credit and 381 courses completed. And so I look at this, so we need to dive into this a little bit more because I actually thought this would most likely be dropping. And then you also remember, I think I did a report in June on the FHS competency crash course. So there's another 59 students and 72 courses, that they took. One of our cuts last year was out of the curriculum side of the budget, and we cut the summer school in half, just trying to look at alternative ways to be able to do that aligns with our personalized competency-based education. So we have some work to do there going into next year. I'm not sure, I need to circle back around with them and find out, why those numbers were so high. Taking a look at the breakdown that he gave me, it's kind of all over the board, but I just wanted to update you on that. And then the other thing I really wanted to bring up to you was just an update on Legends Stadium. So you know that we've moved our transportation building. We used to be housed on the south end of Legends. So I don't know if we're completely moved out of there yet, but once we completely move out of there, that is going to be fenced off by the city and we'll have no access down there. And what that does is there's no bus parking down there. We have no south side entrance into Legends Stadium. So all of the traffic is going to have to come on the north side. It's problematic because the city built a new parking lot down on the south side, but, it's quite a jaunt to get from that parking lot all the way around to the north side. Plus they upgraded the sidewalk, but the problem is the sidewalk doesn't go all the way through, down, I believe it's First Avenue, west. And so, you know, some safety concerns, so we would have people walking on the streets, you know, just, you know, for some of our events. So I've been working with, Bryce and Mark, and then we've also, been talking with the city, so, you know, looking at the north side access, you know, working with the city at, 12th Street on the south side, you know, possibly closing that off during some of our events, so it limits the amount of traffic, that's going through there. We also had an OCR complaint, and we worked on putting, handicap accessible, and that's also gonna have to go through one of the two gates that we have to get people into events. There's only 4 spots there. Unfortunately, the only place we had, the only place we were able to put them, was on the, northeast side, and so they would have to come in through, you know, some of our gates. So it's really problematic. We sat down and met with Doug Russell and Susie Turner, you know, to see if we can come up with some alternative plans, you know, to see if, hey, would you allow us to do some fencing and do a walkway, or we provide security, you know, and able to access the south end. You know, we have big events like Archie Rowe, all of our track meets. We're hosting state track. We have no place to put our buses. Sometimes we have 30, 35 buses that, you know, that show up, and, you know, pretty much the answer was no. You know, so then we tried to look, you know, well, is there a possibility, since you built the new, you know, parking lot down there, can we get access on the, you know, on the east side through the city lot? And, you know, the answer was no. You know, so what they told us was, you guys have known about this since 2019, and, you know, you should have had it figured out. The problem with Legend Stadium is it's landlocked. So all around us, we have a little bit of access from 4th Street west on the west side, but that's where all of a good portion of our track facilities at, a shot put and everything, so you really can't access it from that side. We're actually, a portion of the field is on, you know, city property, some of the practice fields. And so, you know, we've been trying to work with them, but, you know, we haven't had any luck. But what I did ask, Bryce and Mark to do, you know, if we can get through, you know, the fall season, we're just gonna have to educate people and just say, hey, here's places you can park. You know, you can park at Flathead High School, you can park at the Earl Bennett Building, you can park at the South Campus. But it's still gonna be a little bit of a walk for them. You know, the reason that we blocked off that, north side of, or actually the south side of, you know, 12th Street was just, you know, so that we could at least have some drop off for some of our elderly folks, you know, once the handicap, fills up. But it's gonna take quite a bit of education on our part, and we're still trying to work through some solutions. But right now, you know, we don't have any, and we just pretty much said, you know, we're gonna put the Kalispell Police Department, there's gonna be a facility for them back there. We're also gonna put, some public works back there, so there won't be any access. So, we've been trying to work that angle, but we're pretty much landlocked at Legend Stadium, and it's gonna be problematic, you know. The only solution right now is, hey, if we moved our track facility to Glacier High School, that would be about, you know, our only option, and then, you know, Legend Stadium would just be a football stadium for Flathead High School, but you guys know that really comes for a cost, so, we're really gonna have to look and see if we can come up with some other solutions and try to brainstorm a little bit. That was my update.
Yeah, Pete, on that issue, I mean, I know Doug Russell's our city manager, but have we talked to city council?
Not yet. We're trying to, work in conjunction with the city and see if we can, probably our next step, is we have to make them aware of the situation. You know, it is a community, you know, the community built it, it is Legend Stadium. You know, the access is, you know, over the last 25 years, we put a lot of money into that facility. It's a great facility. We use it for soccer, we use it for football, we use it for track, a lot of other events. So, you know, I would hope, you know, that we find a solution. But right now, you know, our only solution is to block that 12th off so we have a little bit more access. But it's really going to be congested. And what I really worry about is, you know, more people on the street and accidents and safety of our spectators.
I guess timing is a question with, obviously, coming back, and should we be considering reaching out to our sooner rather than later?
Probably sooner rather than later, but I mean, you know, in the, in the short term, you know, if Bryce and Mark are gonna have to work, you know, with the city to be able to block that off for special events, you know, so that we do have access, because some of our first games are coming up in, basically 3 weeks.
Can we ask for a shuttle service from Flathead, like a golf cart?
We talked about that too, yeah, to be able to do that.
Try to
So we'd have
advertise
to man
that.
it and find somebody, you know, we'd have to have golf carts and figure out, you know, how we would do a shuttle or something along those lines.
Yeah.
You know, that was brought up in some of our discussions. But most of it is just educating the public on, hey, here's where you need to park, here's where you need to enter. You know, give yourself some time, here's a drop off. It becomes more problematic when we have some of the larger, events, you know, like we have a state track coming in, 25, so, you know, we'd have to turn that back, which would be unfortunate, because one of the biggest things we say is, you know, we really try to get those state events, kind of the way we would give back to our business communities. It's like, hey, you know, we'll try to come in and fill your hotels and fill your restaurants and do some of those things. You know, and it's usually a great event, and that's a great facility down there, but it's gonna be an issue, and we're working on it.
Thank you, Pete.
If you guys have any in with, city council,
Okay.
let me know.
Pete, I just want to let you know that I have a meeting set up with the Community Development Department to talk about this very thing. She's a friend of mine, and, we have been talking about this for a little while. And, somebody just put a little note in my ear about it, and, so I set up a meeting with her. I would love to, walk over there with you and see, with you or with Bryce or somebody, just to see what it is, so I can, talk specifics with her.
Yeah,
Because what I'm asking of her is what's our best way to approach it? Because sometimes it's the soft sell that works
right.
best.
And
So,
that's what, you know, our approach with the city is, hey, we want to try to work in partnership with you
Yeah.
to solve this issue and try to get a little bit of give and take, to be able to figure it out. And
Mhm.
pretty much, I can just tell you, pretty much the answer we got is, you've known about this since 2019, so you should have had it figured out. And unless they give a little bit, there's no figuring it out, because we're landlocked.
Yeah.
But I'd be happy to drive you around. I've driven around there 5 times, counted all the parking spots, and looked at the Earl Bennett building, and looked at the, you know, South Campus, and then looked on the, you know, the west side, and then, you know, are actually taking up, you know, space on the, you know, on the practice field, and, you know, so Bryce and Mark and I, we've kind of, you know, looked at all of our options.
Mhm. Yeah.
We'd have to do something drastic in order to make it work, so.
Yeah.
Matt?
No report.
Andy?
Have several things. First of all, we moved over to the Washington Building. We did that on Monday as the transportation and maintenance people moved into their new facility. So we're over there. We're not holding any meetings over there yet because we don't have the technology, don't have the screen, projection screen that we need, and that is on order. So, you may see sometimes, I think we've had to change one meeting already where we had it over at the Washington Building, maybe a couple of meetings where it said Washington Building. We just don't have the technology over there yet. M-Cell, somebody mentioned this briefly, that is October 19th, M-Cell's October 18th and 19th in Billings. It was originally scheduled for Helena, but they changed it to Billings now. If you haven't been to an M-Cell before, it's usually a pretty good conference. You get a lot of good information, a lot of insight, how other school districts are doing things. So if you're interested in that, we do have a block of rooms booked, anticipating there will be trustees that will be attending it. And then once we get a final list, we'll figure out the logistics. So we'll try to continue to get that information, check your calendars to see if that's something that you're available to go to. Our grant administrator for the lead-free schools grant was here last week, and we met with her with M&M and, a couple of their people, and then myself. She went through the, Hedges School, took pictures, saw what they were doing there. And then at the end, she said, which I did not know, is that, the school district was the only school district in the state that got a lead-free grant. And so she's going to basically, when she takes it to the governor to make her presentation, she'll kind of be highlighting what Kalispell's doing and, how the money's being used. And she said maybe even the governor might come down here and want to see what we're doing with the grant, and so that he can make it part of his future plans for getting more schools involved. And I did see that, Senator Tester is advocating some of the infrastructure money to come to Montana specifically to address these type of projects of getting, lead out of the school water and municipality water systems. Upcoming preparation for school on, August 14th is the new teacher orientation. On August 17th is the K-12 administrative retreat. August 28th and 29th is the Yellow Bus Tour. That's when the teachers come back on the 28th. And then there'll be, the first day we'll be visiting the K, and then, after that, we'll be visiting the high schools in Linderman. So we're getting that all set up. Of course, school starts on August 30th. So, you know, we're in August and school is, approaching quickly. I have been attending Daybreak Rotary meetings, so, starting to meet a lot of people, from the local community, starting to get to know who I am, and I'm getting to know who they are, although don't ask me anybody's names yet. So, a lot of people to be introduced to. We have the AA superintendent's meetings every Thursday morning on Zoom, and, getting a lot of information from them as far as, operation of their school districts and how it applies to what we're doing in our school district. I went to the first Northwest Mass meeting, which is the Superintendent's Local Association. They have one, live meeting a month and then also one Zoom meeting a month. Very active group, a lot of information there because there were a lot of changes with obviously all these policies and discussing those, as well as new accreditation standards, which we'll talk a little bit about later. Pete and I went to the Flathead Valley Community College, met with the other districts that have high schools there, and that's in preparation of them planning in conjunction with the high schools to open their career and work center that they plan on building and, working through that. And I'm pretty sure Pete has been working on that all of last year. It's getting started this year. The ESEA funding, the way that the Department of Education is interpreting that is that weapons are not allowed in the building, or you would not be able to get that funding. And so now schools are dropping archery and not allowing hunter safety courses to be taken in their schools, because that's their interpretation, is neither one of those are allowed. And so there's a bipartisan effort to amend that law to allow those activities to take place. But as of right now, under the way the current law is being interpreted, they're not allowed. That's all I have. Thanks.
Take a look over our upcoming meetings. We've got meetings on Friday, communications Monday, and then remember we all meet. That's all we have.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I assume fall sports has started or will soon start. How are we doing with the smoke and testing?
So last year we updated that policy, so, we used, purple air, and then today's air. So, you know, then we have the guidelines and everything. We sent that out I sent it out to the activities directors, last week in preparation. So I have it on the agenda for tomorrow's 9 through 12 meeting. Also looked at Matt's agenda, Matt has it on his for the K-8. So, you know, there's guidelines on there, it's up to, you know, the discretion of the, building administration. You know, the air might be a little bit different at Glacier than it is down at Flathead, but, you know, for the most part, it's like, hey, here's where we're at, here's where we're going, you know, with activities and recess and all of that.
Anybody else? Anybody like to move to adjourn?
Moved.
Thank you, Lloyd. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ursula. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.